This decadent Oreo chocolate cake is made with cookies and cream buttercream sandwiched between layers of rich chocolate cake, wrapped up in more Oreo buttercream, topped with pretty swirls and Oreo cookies. To make the Oreo buttercream is really simple. Make one batch of my 4-minute buttercream for an 8-inch cake, and you'll need 16 Oreos. Crush 4 in a food processor, or you can put them in a sandwich bag and bang them with a rolling pin or something heavy to crush them, and then pour them into the buttercream and stir them in. Stir this buttercream as little as possible, because if you keep mixing, instead of white frosting with black specks, you'll end up with grey frosting, which doesn't look very appealing. Bake your cake layers. The recipe is on britishgirlbakes.com, and the link is in the video description and at the top of the screen. And when they're cool, layer your cake. Spread some buttercream onto the middle of a cake board to attach your first cake layer. You can level the layers if you want to, but they bake quite flat, and leaving them as they are will make the tallest cake. Spread on the Oreo buttercream as filling, going right up to the edges, and spinning the cake to smooth the buttercream like this, with your offset spatula or palette knife, will level the filling. So even if your cake layers aren't perfectly level, the cake will be straight. It's easiest to frost cakes when they're cold, so put the cake in the fridge for 30 minutes or the freezer for 15 minutes to chill and set the Oreo buttercream, which will hold the cake in place and stop it from leaning or wobbling or sliding around on the cake board. And when the cake layers are cold, they're less crumbly. So it's easier to spread the buttercream on without pulling off chunks of cake. It's best to do a crumb coat first, this thin layer of frosting to trap any crumbs that come off the cake, and then put the cake back into the fridge or freezer for another 15 to 30 minutes to set this crumb coat, so that when you touch it, it's firm, not sticky. Now spread the rest of the Oreo buttercream onto the cake, and notice that the bowl was covered with plastic wrap while the cake was in the fridge. That's really important because it keeps the buttercream soft. If you leave the buttercream uncovered, it will crust and dry out. This final layer of frosting takes much longer than the crumb coat because you take the time to get it really smooth. For this cake, the crumb coat took me 4 minutes and 50 seconds, but the final coat took almost 9 minutes. Smooth frosting takes patience and practice. First of all, when you're spreading the buttercream onto the cake, make sure you spread it up above the top edge, and that will give you nice sharp angles around the cake later. After scraping around the cake with a cake comb several times, spread more buttercream over any gaps or indents in the frosting, and then scrape again and again. And for the top edge, swipe sideways with your offset spatula or palette knife to flatten the frosting there, wiping the blade clean after each swipe before using it again. Now it's time to decorate. Drop a star-shaped piping tip into a piping bag. This is a 1M piping tip, and score with scissors about halfway up the tip. Push the piping tip out of the way and cut along the line you scored, and then push the piping tip through the hole. It should be about halfway out of the bag. Spoon the leftover Oreo buttercream into the piping bag. I like to fold the top of the bag over so it doesn't get covered in buttercream, which will then get all over my hands. A tall glass is great for holding the bag open while you spoon the buttercream in. Unfold it and your hands will have no buttercream on them. Grip the top of the bag and push the buttercream down to the end, and then twist the bag to keep the buttercream pressed down, which makes it easier to pipe. But before piping, arrange the remaining 12 Oreo cookies on top of the cake, so that they stand upright and go out to the edge of the cake. It's easiest to position the cookies first and then pipe the swirls afterwards, so that you can space them evenly. I put 4 around the cake first, at 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and 9 o'clock, and then put 2 more cookies into each gap between the cookies. Now pipe swirls, going out to the edge of the cake and all the way up to the Oreos on each side, and stop when you get to the top of the Oreos. Another reason for putting the Oreos onto the cake before piping is that they act as a guide to make each swirl the same width and height. Here's a quick hack. If you find that the buttercream is clogging and not coming through the piping tip, it's because chunks of Oreo cookie are blocking the tip. Pry the prongs of the piping tip out a bit, like this, so the crushed cookie pieces can get through. If you make this cake in advance, keep it in the fridge for up to 3 days and take it out 2 to 4 hours before you serve it, so that the cake and buttercream come to room temperature, and that's when they taste the best. There are 2 sizes of this Oreo chocolate cake recipe on britishgirlbakes.com. This tall 8-inch cake and a smaller recipe for a shorter 8-inch cake or a tall 6-inch cake like this one. And you can divide the buttercream to make Oreo buttercream for the filling and plain vanilla for the frosting, so that you can tint it like this pink or any other color. All of that is on my website, and you'll also find my cake school there with online cake decorating courses for all skill levels. I hope to see you there!